What's good, everybody? Dan Sports News here, bringing you the 16th episode of the Dan Sports News and Friends podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at Dan Sports News, Instagram at I am Dan Sports News, and Facebook at Dan Sports News to check out my latest articles and news in sports. Today's guest is Chucky Atkins, who is a former NBA player who spent 10 years in the league. He shares his journey playing with a lot of superstars from the past and present and playing under some great coaches. Check it out. How old were you when you first started playing basketball?
When I first started playing basketball, I was probably about 6 years old in first grade.
Were you the best player growing up around your friends and classmates in school?
No, I wouldn't say I was the best. I said I was probably somewhere in the top 20. You know what I'm saying? But, my love for basketball and the amount of time that I practiced was probably more than everybody else. So.
When did you realize that you had the ability to play basketball at the next level?
When you say the next level, what do you mean?
Like when you realized you could play potentially in the NBA. Was it in high school? Was it in college? When did you realize?
It was when I was in college. Basketball to me was a lot different. I always went from level to level. Coming up, I started playing basketball as a 6-year-old kid. You want to know where you fit in with the rest of the kids. Like I said, I was a top 20. I feel like to me, of all the kids that I grew around and I played ball against, I was probably a top 20 kid. And then, you get to middle school where, I probably, as a 7th grader, we didn't have middle school, we had junior high. So as a 7th grader, you work your way from the bottom. And by the time I was in the 8th grade, I probably was maybe, still in the top 20 of the kids. But in between my 8th and 9th grade year, I kind of took off and separated myself. By the time I was a senior, I was one of the top kids in the state of Florida. I went to University of South Florida. And then once I got to University of South Florida, I had the opportunity to come back and train and practice at that particular time with some of the Orlando Magic guys in the summertime. And that's when I really knew that I had an opportunity to play at the next level. Because once I played with those guys and could hold my own, I felt like if I could hold my own against these guys, then if I could just get better and get a little bit more strong and get a little bit more athletic, then I would have an opportunity to play at the highest level.
Right, for sure. Now, going back to the college days, you go to South Florida, USF. Why did you choose that school? Were there any other colleges that were recruiting you?
Well, I had a lot of mid-major schools recruiting me, trying to get me to sign to come to their school. But I chose USF because, one, it was a mid-major. 2, it was only an hour from my house, and really the only school in Florida that recruited me at that time. So being that it was only an hour away from my house, it was in a good conference at that particular time. We were in a conference with Louisville and Tulane and, schools like that. So because it was in a good conference, only an hour away from home in Florida, that's why I chose it.
Right. Now, after that, you play in the CBA, the Continental Basketball Association, which was kind of like pre-D League / G League. What was it like playing in that league till you first get started playing pro?
It was an eye-opener. Obviously as a young kid, you're trying to learn what it takes to be a pro. I went there with no really expectations, but just to learn and see where I could fit in, how I could see if I could actually get to the big leagues. It was a huge test because you meet a lot of guys that could play, a lot of older guys, and you were constantly being challenged every day. So a guy in the D League or at that particular time, the CBA, if you're a soft guy mentally or a soft guy physically, you didn't last very long.
Right. Now, Steven Jackson actually played on that same team. Did he play at the same time as you?
No, he did not.
Oh, okay. All right. So after that, you play overseas, and then how did the Orlando Magic contact you about playing for them?
Well, like I told you, a lot of times when I was in college, I used to. So basically, I had a relationship with the Magic and their assistant coaches because during that time, during the summertime, every time I would come back, I would always play with the Orlando Magic guys, the pros. So I had a relationship. So once I started playing in Europe professionally, I got a job in Europe. I would come home in the summertime and play with those guys, and I caught the eye of the general manager, the coaches, and you know what I'm saying. And I came home, and Doc Rivers had just gotten the job. He had obviously heard about me, and then once he started seeing me play consistently in the summertime against his guys, they thought that I could be an asset, someone that could help the franchise win games.
So you were playing against them, you said, when you were in college, just practicing against them. So those were like the days with Penny Hardaway and stuff like that?
Yep, I used to play with Penny, Dennis, Nick, Darryl Armstrong. I mean, I used to play with all those guys, Marlon Wiley, all of those guys.
So after that, you go to the Pistons, and you have a pretty successful run with them. You stayed there for 4 years, 4 straight.
Right.
You stayed 4 straight years with the Pistons, playing for them?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I did.
And what was it like playing with that team? Chauncey Billups, Richard Rip Hamilton, Ben Wallace, some of those guys.
It was a great opportunity and a great situation. I mean, the one thing that people didn't necessarily or didn't understand about that Detroit Pistons team was that everybody that was on that team had been through something. Ben Wallace had a long road to the NBA. I had a long road to the NBA. Chauncey Billups was a guy who was in the NBA but had gotten traded to 6 or 7 teams. So we prided ourselves on being kind of like the have-nots, but we wanted to prove to everybody that you don't have to have big-time names in order to win games. So we prided ourselves on that, and the beautiful thing about those guys was, one, that they were great guys. 2, everybody cared about each other, and the only thing that we really cared about was winning games.
Right, and that was one of the best defensive teams. Like the Detroit defense always was very good with that team. Then after that, you go to the Celtics. What was it like playing over there in Boston?
Boston was good, man. I mean, I had an opportunity to play in a city that had big time tradition and loved the game of basketball. Our team wasn't very good. We were kind of broken up. We had lost some pieces. Obviously, everything revolved around Paul Pierce. But I was only there for really like a couple of months, so there's not really much I can say about that.
Right. And then you go to the Lakers. Now, I'm a Lakers fan, so that's my favorite team. And you have a very, very good season with them. You personally do, but the team doesn't make the playoffs. Talk about that season with the Lakers.
Again, the Lakers organization was an organization rich in basketball tradition. I had an absolute great time playing with Kobe Bryant and playing for the organization. Our team, we were a middle of the pack team, but we got hit with some injuries at a crucial time of that year. And it kind of threw us off. Like, Kobe went down. He went down with a high ankle sprain. Lamar went down. Karan kind of went down. So it was a lot of injuries that hurt us. But getting to know Kobe on a personal basis was a hell of an experience for me. Getting to know guys like Kurt Rambis and being around those guys and understanding why the Lakers win year in and year out is the type of culture that they set. And it didn't surprise me much, and just, like I said, just being around Kobe and just learning how he prepares and what makes him a great basketball player, what made him a great basketball player was interesting and intriguing to me.
How was Kobe in practices? Would he get upset at his teammates or anything like that? Or was he, because we know he is very passionate about the game, and I'm a Kobe fan, so not to knock him, but did he ever show aggression at the teammates and stuff like that?
When he was with me, you got to understand, this was his first year without Shaq. So he was really learning to be a leader. You know what I'm saying? But he never yelled at anybody. He would always come and talk to you. But one thing that you always know about Kobe Bryant was the fact that he was working.
Right.
And if you were a worker and a guy that spent time working on that game, then you didn't have to worry about it. He never yelled at me. Hey, I was always in the gym.
Right.
So, he was a guy who took care of his business, and more than anything, the guy wanted to win.
Now, you and Kobe were in the backcourt, like you said, lots of injuries. You, if I'm not mistaken, you were the only one who played the full 82-game season, and you were the second leading scorer on that team next to Kobe Bryant. What happened after the season that you ended up going to the Wizards?
After the season, obviously, if you're a Laker, it's for them, for that organization, for that franchise, it's championship or bust, basically. And if you're a team that didn't make the playoffs, the team had to be shaken up. And, every team has assets. You know what I mean? There are assets that you're willing to give up, and there's assets that you're not willing to give up. Obviously you have Kobe Bryant, who was probably the best player in the NBA at that time, is an asset that you're not going to give up. Lamar Odom, who's a top 10, 15 guy, that top 10, 15, player in the league at that time, that's an asset that they weren't ready to give up. Myself and Caron Butler were assets, that other teams wanted, so they were willing to part ways with us. So we actually went and got traded to the Washington Wizards.
And what was it like playing with the Wizards? Gilbert Arenas is a name that everybody knows. How was that tenure?
Gilbert was a fun guy to play with. He was a younger guy, a guy with tremendous amount of talent. And there was a franchise at that particular time that was learning to win games. Obviously you had Antoine Jameson, who was an all-star. You had Gilbert Arenas, who was a top 5 point guard at that particular time. And then, you bring on a Caron Butler, who had the potential to be an all-star, and who eventually became an all-star. You had Jared Jeffries, who was a 6'11", kind of Swiss knife, kind of do everything type of guy. Then you had Brendan Hayward, who was a great guy, in the anchor in the middle. So it was the makings of a good young team. And, it was fun being there.
Right. And then after that, you go to a very, very strong Denver Nuggets team. And I think you stay there for 2 years. What was it like playing with that talented team in Denver?
Denver was a different experience. A lot of talent, but we didn't have the mental toughness that it took to be a championship caliber team. You had championship caliber talent, but we didn't have the mental toughness, and a lot of things that necessarily weren't important to championship teams became important there, and that's why they never really got to where probably they could have been or should have been.
I know they did have a first-round exit against the Lakers. I think they got swept the first year, and then the next season they lost. It might have been the conference finals. They lost in 7 games, I think, to the Lakers. But that team was very talented, like we said, with Allen Iverson, Carmelo Anthony, both averaged over 20 points per game, and Chauncey Billups is there. What was it like playing with those guys and all their playing styles?
I mean, for me, every time I play with a great talent, I always want to know what makes a guy so great. Obviously, you have many talented guys, but again, what type of work ethic do these hot guys have? And like I told you before, you can have great talent, but if everybody ain't working to try to be the best that they can possibly be to help the team be the best that they can be, talent is just talent. And in Denver, we had a bunch of talent, but we didn't maximize what we had in order to get the job done.
Right. Now, there was a year you played at Memphis. I think I missed that, skipped that by mistake. But that Grizzlies team, it was a very young team. Kyle Lowry was on that team. He just won the championship, as we know, with the Raptors. What was it like playing with that Grizzlies team, and did you realize that Kyle Lowry was going to be somebody special, like as he is now, and a good player?
You knew that Kyle was going to be a great young player. First of all, he was tough as nails. Second of all, he had a great work ethic. Third of all, he wanted to be good. You understand what I'm saying? So you knew that he was going to be special. Did I know he was going to go on to be an all-star and lead a team to a championship? I couldn't tell you that I did. But from looking at the steps that he's taken from the time that I was with him to now, I have nothing but the utmost respect and love for the guy because, he got it from the muscle, and he's evolved into one of the better point guards in the NBA. We also had a guy by the name of Rudy Gay, who you could tell, like, from the minute go that he was going to be a special player. Obviously, he could run and jump, like a deer. But he's a kid also that went down with an Achilles injury. So but we had Paul Gasol, who was a franchise player at that particular time, who could do everything at 7'1".
Right.
We had Miller, who was a 6th man of the year, and a great shooter. You had Shane Battier, who was Mr. Do-It-All and a key player on those teams. And then one of the best coaches I've ever played for, Mike Fratello, was our coach, and I learned a lot from Mike. So Memphis, the city was just okay, but playing with those guys was fun.
Right. Now, the Oklahoma City years, that's once again another young team that you're playing with. Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant. Obviously not a lot of winning went on when you were there, as they were young and they were learning about the game. And I think Russell Westbrook was a rookie the year you were there. Did you realize that those two players, Durant and Westbrook, were going to be as big as they are now? Did you see the potential in them?
Absolutely. From day one, when I stepped in the locker room, you knew that those two guys were going to do exactly what they did. Both MVP guys. Those guys pushed each other. Even on days off, they would come to the gym and work out. Again, they had the ability and the talent to be the MVPs and to be the triple-double kings and to go on to win championships. And they also had the work ethic and the smarts. So When you have that in a package, I mean, you have nothing but greatness. And obviously it's funny because the year I got to Oklahoma City, they were losing, and then after All-Star break, they went on a huge. I think they may have had one of the better records in the Western Conference after the All-Star break. And I told them, the general manager, at my exit interview, that they were going to be one of the top teams in the West the next year, and they ended up drafting James Harden, and then they got Serge Ibaka in that off season, and the rest is history.
Wow. Now, after that, you make a return to Detroit, playing for the Pistons, in your final season in the NBA. What was it like coming back to a team that you had played so many years for, and being reunited with some of your old teammates?
Detroit is like home to me, man. So anytime I can be there playing basketball, playing with the Pistons at that particular time, it's like being at home. It's almost like being in Orlando. Going back and playing with Ben is great. Going back and playing with Tayshaun was great. I mean, going back and playing with Rip. Anytime you get an opportunity to play with guys who you've won with before, there's a sense of how can I say, relaxation, knowing that that's a guy that I know that I can count on because we've done it before. There's a tremendous amount of trust. You know what I'm saying? And everything was what it was. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, I was back home. I think at that particular time we had a young rookie coach and a guy by the name of John Custer that. He was a rookie coach trying to coach veterans, and, that particular year just didn't work out for us.
Right. Now, a few episodes ago of my podcast, I had a guy by the name of Horace Jenkins on the show. He also played with the Pistons.
I know.
Yeah.
I know Horace.
Right. Now, did he play the same time you played, or did he get there a year after?
I think Horace got there after I did.
Right. Now, he told me that Ben Wallace had the quickest feet he's ever seen by a defender. What do you think about Ben Wallace's game?
Well, I think Ben Wallace is a freak of nature. You know what I'm saying? You got a guy who has the speed and quickness of a guard, but he has the size and the strength of a power forward. And the jumping ability of, one of the top, the athleticism of one of the top guys in the league, which makes him different from everybody else. He got the strength. He's strong enough, and to guard a Shaq or Carmelo. He's quick enough to get out there and guard Allen Iverson. He jumps off the floor enough to be able to contest the high flyers in the league. You don't find very many guys that possess those attributes and those characteristics at 6'8", 6'9".
Right. Now, looking back on your NBA career, I'll go through some of the names that we mentioned already. Gilbert Arenas, Ben Wallace, Chauncey Billups, Allen Iverson, Paul Pierce, Kobe Bryant, Carmelo Anthony, Kyle Lowry, Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, Pau Gasol, Richard Hamilton. When you look back at your career, what was it that you were able to play with so many stars of the past and so many stars of the future?
I think that's just a credit. I was lucky. You know what I'm saying? Although some people may look at it, people look at it different ways. Some people may look at it well, you got traded to all these different teams, and I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing. And then, but I look at it as if I had an opportunity to see the best, to see and play with some of the best of the best. I understand what makes a good basketball player. I understand what greatness is, and I know it when I see it. All right. Also, not only did I play with great players, but I also had a chance to learn from great coaches. I played with Doc Rivers, played for Doc Rivers. I played for Rick Carlisle. I played for Larry Brown. I played for George Karl. I played for Rudy Tomjanovich. I had a chance to play for Mike Fratello. I had a chance to play for Scott Brooks. So all of those guys are coaches. Doc Rivers won a championship. Rudy Tomjanovich won a championship. Rick Carlisle won a championship. Larry Brown won a championship. You know what I mean? So, George Karl is one of the all-time winning coaches in the history of the NBA. So I had an opportunity to not only be around the best players, but also be around the best coaches and get a chance to learn a lot over the course of my NBA career.
Right, for sure. And that's a good way to look at it. A lot of people, don't see it for that. And that's a good way to look at it, that you've played with so many stars and great coaches. But now, let's get into some of this season in the NBA. What are your thoughts on the Lakers team for this year?
I think the Lakers have a decent team. I mean, they obviously you have LeBron James, one of the best basketball minds of today. You got JaVale McGee, who's turning into a solid pro and is a champion. You have, Rajon Rondo, who's also a great basketball mind and a champion. You just got AD, who's probably the most talented basketball player right now in the game to go with LeBron James. You got Kuzma, who is going to have a breakout year this year, and the list goes on and on for those guys. I think the GM has done a great job of putting the pieces together. Now they have to gel and they have to stay healthy.
Do you like the Dwight Howard signing? Do you think that was the right person for the Lakers to bring in?
I do. I mean, hey man, everybody deserves a second chance. With what they're asking Dwight, what they're probably going to ask Dwight to do, they're not asking Dwight to come in and be the Dwight Howard of the 2009 Orlando Magic that went to the championship. They're probably asking Dwight to come in, give them solid backup minutes, contest things in the lane, grab a few rebounds and run the court, and just, he's a guy that can throw lobs too, because that, LeBron James is going to be asking and demanding a lot of pick and rolls. He's perfect in that role, and he's great at catching lobs. And it also gives AD an opportunity to stay and play more at the 4 than at the 5. So for what they're going to ask him to do, I mean, I think that he was the perfect guy based on the guys that they had that they were looking at.
Right. Now, I have to ask you, your former teammate, Carmelo Anthony, he's still not on an NBA roster currently, and we all know that he can still hoop. He still has some basketball left in, at least for one more season. What team do you think should sign Carmelo Anthony?
I think Carmelo, obviously the Lakers would be a great fit for him. Another team that I think would be a great fit for Carmelo would be the Portland Trail Blazers.
Why do you say that?
I know that sounds fun.
Yeah.
That sounds funny, but you can bring Carmelo in at this particular time and play him off the ball. Obviously you can bring him off the bench, and he could be that scorer that you need him to be, because it's hard. And this is what I say. I played with Chauncey Billups and I played with Richard Hamilton. Right? Regardless of how well those guys play, they're always going to have a few minutes in a game to where it's going to be hard for them to get a basket. And I'm looking at that saying the same thing about Damian Lillard and CJ McCullough. Those guys are great scorers, but parts and moments in the game to where it's hard for them to get baskets or get shots off. Quality shots. Right. You bring in a guy like Carmelo Anthony. In those moments, he could create some type of offense for him. And he's going to a playoff team with an opportunity to do something decent. I mean, you got to think now, the Portland Trailblazers last year, they'll be a lot better this year, especially with the talent spread out all over the NBA. And two, it'll just be good to see him back in the league on a team that has an opportunity to get to the NBA Finals.
Right. I think that's very good. A good thing that you said. I never saw the Portland Trailblazers as a team that could possibly maybe get him, but that's very good what you said there. What about Jamal Crawford, another guy who still has some basketball left in the tank? Where do you think he should sign with?
I think Jamal Crawford should sign with the Philadelphia 76ers.
Why do you say that?
Or the Milwaukee Bucks. I just think that he's a guy that can do a lot of stuff with the ball, and he's a proven scorer. You put him out there on the court with a Ben Simmons. You put him out there on the basketball court with a Joel Embiid. At the end of the game, a lot of times last year, you got to think now, Jimmy Butler was the guy that was taking all the shots in the crucial moments and winning the games for the 76ers. Who's going to take his place and take that? Obviously, I like Ben Simmons, but I don't think Ben is yet comfortable. Ben wants to facilitate in those moments instead of be the one to make it and play. Joel Embiid, he does his thing, but there's going to have to be that third guy. And I don't think that the guys that they brought in or a guy like Tobias Harris could fill that role. But I think Jamal Crawford would be a guy who could.
Now, lastly on the free agent side, J.R. Smith, another one of your former teammates, who is also currently a free agent. What team has the best chance, or which team do you think J.R. Smith should sign with?
That's a little bit more difficult. I think, J.R. Smith has to go someplace that needs some outside shooting, obviously. A squad like Milwaukee Bucks, maybe. Or maybe the Miami Heat. Someplace like that may fit him well. Or guess what? Maybe the Toronto Raptors, because they lost a shooter. They lost my man from Toronto that went to the Lakers, the shooter from North Carolina. I can't think of his name right now.
Danny Green.
Yeah, they lost Danny Green. So maybe JR can take his space.
That's true, right. Now, you were 5'11". You obviously played with Allen Iverson. How tall was he really?
He was 6 foot.
Oh, so he was 6 foot? He wasn't really 5'11"?
No, he was 6 foot.
Oh.
The thing about him was he had a 7 foot wingspan, 7 foot something wingspan.
Right.
So you got a guy that's 6 foot with a huge wingspan that's running like a 4.3, 4.2, 40 and jumping 40-something inches off the ground. Is like you put all his physical attributes together. He was more like a 6'6" guy, but he was mostly matched up with smaller guys because he was small.
Do you have any Allen Iverson stories from your time with the Nuggets?
I have plenty of Allen Iverson stories. He's a guy, he's another freak of nature. Like, Allen Iverson is a guy who can do a lot of things with the ball. And, with him, you could watch him go out and hang out and come out there on the basketball court and score 40 points like it was nothing. And to me, that was like the craziest, most outlandish thing.
Right. Now, the last thing before we wrap it up, would you ever consider coming back and playing in the Big Three basketball league?
Absolutely not.
Why not?
To me, the Big Three is for bigger dudes, the 6'8", 6'9", the guys just doing a bunch of. First of all, it's a half court game. I don't flourish in a half court. My advantage over people is my scores was my speed and quickness. So why would I put myself in a situation, one, where we're playing half court basketball and there's a lot of fouling going on and all of that? And I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of the Big Three. I'm not saying anything negative about it. I'm a huge fan. I watch it every weekend.
For sure.
But as far as me getting out there playing, I'm not going to do it. No.
Right. I understand that because it's a totally different game. Half court setting is totally different from NBA style. But we do see situations like Joe Johnson, who just signed a contract with the Pistons today after playing in the Big Three.
Like I said, he's a bigger guy.
Right.
Joe Johnson is 6'8", 230 pounds. He's a bigger guy.
Right. I understand what you're saying. Makes sense.
You know what I'm saying? You look at all those guys. How many small guys you got playing in the Big Three? You got Nate Robinson and you got Mahmoud. But, all the rest of those guys, like I said, I like the Big Three, but that ain't for me.